So Josh, you have an exciting development. You're always out there sharing your testimony, sharing your story, and we're going to get into the different ways you're doing that. But one of the big things coming up here is your I Am Second video. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Like what was that like to film?
Yeah, it was so cool because I've been a huge fan of I Am Second for a long time, and a lot of notable people have done those white chair films, and it's a really unique look. You got this white chair in the middle of this like super dark room, and I had the opportunity to film one. And what's really unique about this one film, which it doesn't make sense, but the way God's been moving in my life, it does make sense. It's the first film that they have where there's a clear presentation of the gospel and there's actually a call to action to say, okay, we're addressing a problem and here's a solution.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So let me ask this. How long did it take you to film it? Because when people watch them, they're condensed, but obviously you're there doing it way longer than what people are seeing.
Yeah, so it was an all day deal. We filmed some BTS stuff like prior to. There was a lot of conversation leading up to that, a lot of storyboarding. Me providing some backstory, some pre-interviews to the interview, sitting down with the director, talking about the conversation, and then then we sat down and filmed it. But it was probably a full day of filming.
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking the other day over text and we were joking and I was saying to you how much I hate TikTok but we were talking about on TikTok how your testimony has reached so many people. I mean, it's insane the number of people who have seen it. And how social media, you've been able to share this story and reach people. You're not a stranger to sharing your journey out of the porn industry into faith and now being, a pastor, you're evangelizing. How, though, was this experience with I Am Second different from the other ways in which you have shared your story? What were some of the differences?
Yeah, I would say that the thing that was different is that they didn't shy away from the darkness of the story, but they also didn't shy away from the solution to the story. Because a lot of people ask me, Dwayne and I, we have the opportunity to interact with a lot of different organizations, and we've seen a lot of stuff happen over the last few years. Um, but what was different about this is number one, they didn't shy away from the darkness of the story, the depression, the anxiety, the suicidal ideation that came with the darkness of the industry. At the same time, it was a clear presentation of the gospel because it was the gospel that saved me, and it was me stepping into a relationship with a local church, being discipled in a deep way over time, progressively changing. So like having that salvation moment, but also that sanctification moment, because I think the thing that often gets missing in my story is that, yes, I gave my life to Jesus and my life was changed in that moment, but how did what does the last 8 years look like? Like, how did I get to where I am now? It was a lot of hard work. It was a long obedience over time. But yeah, so that's the thing that it really leaned into. And then on the back end, we had the opportunity to connect with Addison Brevier, Messenger International, and we developed a curriculum to say, hey, here is the dangers of pornography. Here is what the Bible says to be true, and here are some practicalities along with some spiritual next steps that you need to take. Because if you're asking me, how did I get free from porn? It was hearing the gospel, being embedded into a local church, spending some time being discipled for a long time, and implying the not implying, activating those things in my life.
Yeah. Well, and people are going to get a chance to watch this, which is exciting. I love the way they present these stories and I Am Second. So I'm excited to see how your story is presented and shown there. Dwayne, I got to ask you, how you've done ministry for a long time. How did you guys connect and what most resonated with you about Josh's story? I'm just curious from your perspective.
We connected a little over a year ago,
Yeah.
really around the idea of how do you use a platform, which, Josh has an amazing platform. Really, it's going from his story now to just, his relationships and reach and the message, even beyond just the story. He's got a very compelling story, but it's really going beyond that now. But started to kind of connect on that, and then how do we take that platform and really leverage that for the most, reach, but then even beyond reach, discipleship. And so that's where we really resonated, is because not only is it Josh's story now, as he's leading a lot of others, mentoring others that have platforms.
Yeah.
So really starting to bring, hey, how do you take that platform? One, mentoring them just as a leader, like, hey, some of these guys are young. They go from, within a year, just this massive following where millions of people are seeing a post that they make.
Yeah.
How do you handle that,
Yeah, it's been really neat to see people coming to me. It's like, hey, I've got this radical story. I shared it. I'm seeing some fruit. How do I handle the pressure? How do I know how to share my story? How do I know? I mean, these are some things that you and I have walked through over the last few years. What are some things that you share sometimes, and then sometimes there's things that you don't share? Just knowing how to navigate the different nuances of your testimony, depended on the audience. Like how deep do I go? What do I hold back? And then other times, when do I lay it all out there? But that really like leads us to like what he was talking about, like what Share the King is, and how we got to some of the stuff we're doing today.
Yeah, well, and let's dig into that, because, and I just, before we do, what you're talking about there is helping people shape the narrative of their story. And, as believers, as Christians, what you guys are trying to do, you're using your story to bring people to the Lord. You're not using your story to bring people to you. And that's a really unique thing. And I think, working with other people and helping them even stay on track with that, because it's really hard when there's a lot of attention that comes in, managing that in a way that filters people to the Lord, right? And keeping your eyes on that. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, Josh, but I do think that's a tough thing for a lot of people once they get into sharing their testimony.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, regardless of what your testimony looks like, if you're following Jesus, you once were dead and now you're fully alive. So we all have a story, and regardless of the wound, you have a scar that is healed because of what Christ has done on the cross, and that scar then points to Christ. And so what Share the King is ultimately is we are equipping people to share the King so that multitudes, people all over the world, can come to know the King. And we're working with these people who have these large platforms because it's really leaders leading leaders.
Mm-hmm.
How can we partner with people to increase their biblical literacy? We want people to be more theologically competent, not just be eloquent. We want people to have those digital strategies, but really by putting people in an ecosystem or a community where, hey, I'm leading you, but we're all doing the same thing. So we call them cohorts, where there's a coach essentially leading the cohort, but it's really a leader leading other leaders. And that's happening on a digital landscape. So these people have large platforms. They might have different nuances in their tech, in their content. While like some people are content creators, where there's some people who make smoothies, but they themselves are Christ-centric, and they're asking, how do I leverage the influence that God has given me for kingdom impact? And there's different strategies to implement there, and that's just it's just amazing to see what God is doing on a digital landscape. Something that I like to say often is how Paul edified churches he wasn't in proximity to with the pen. God is using digital to edify people so that they can go and edify those in both their digital ecosystem, but also their physical community.
Yeah. And Dwayne, it's interesting because, with Unite Life and with Share the King and all these efforts, I joked before about disliking TikTok, and it's more a factor of being, too lazy because I've got 12 other platforms, right? And a lot of people struggle with that. But the reality is, as much as I joke sometimes about social, this is a major way that people are finding the Lord, right? Like a lot of churches, though, or some churches and some ministries, some people, they're a little skeptical of the digital landscape. They maybe don't know a lot about it. What can you tell us to sort of reaffirm from what you've seen why this is so essential to be meeting people where they are digitally?
Yeah, if it also like I don't mean to cut in on credit, but like I think it's like so beneficial if you dig into his question, but also like the top of the funnel to getting plugged into a church, like that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. We started, Unite Life started out of China, and it was really like a supply and demand thing. We had an open door to share the gospel digitally in 2012. There was no supply, but huge demand. So we got to see just a spread of not only the gospel, but an interest to take a next step into discipleship. So that's where it really birthed, hey, we can reach so many people. I mean, to the point where we're getting very close to being able to hit every tribe, tongue, nation, which, I mean, that's biblical. Matthew 24:14. Jesus doesn't give us a time and dates, but he says, the gospel will go forth to all nations as a witness to the nations. That's ethno, every tribe, tongue, and nation. We're living in those days to be able to reach everybody with the gospel. But the next step is we're called to disciple, to make disciples, and so that's really the heart of what we're able to do. And the cool thing of working with guys like Josh, Rashawn Copeland's another one of the co-founders of Share the King, is the best way to reach is actually through social. You can do paid ads. There's other digital ways of reaching, but in terms of like relationship, because there's a trust that people who hear a message from Josh, they see a consistency, and there's a trust that's created that he can then take that and say, hey, here's the natural next step. Like, get in the Word, get connected to community. So as he's sharing that, there's a trust level. Whereas just running a paid ad or some of these other channels, they don't provide So it's not even about the social channels. It's about the people that they can connect to digitally. And it's cool because we've seen the church and a lot of parachurch ministries, they were starting to move this way pre-COVID. A lot of organizations started shifting. During COVID and post-COVID especially, it's like there's this mad rush right now for churches and for organizations to understand how to leverage digital, which is, it's amazing because it's like especially you go overseas, it's like the Wild West.
Well, and I think the idea too, that people have this improper idea where it's like, oh, I threw an ad at somebody and then I never followed up. There was that's not how it works, right? I mean, you guys are figuring out ways to make connections. And I've seen this again and again. There was a ministry that Jesse Bradley, I believe in Washington State, or I'm forgetting which state, out on the West Coast. He was a former soccer player during the World Cup, had a campaign online where they were reaching out to people who were fans of the World Cup with his testimony and his journey. And they saw like 200,000 people come to the Lord with resources connecting them.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a one and done. And I think what you guys are doing is so unique and so important. And COVID, in a lot of ways, probably, as you're saying, it sparked and pushed this forward, and it put a lot of ministries in this position that maybe they wouldn't have even realized they were going to be. Josh, I'm sure you have something to add to that, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, just to lay it out there really clearly, it's we're like, for example, like you were saying about TikTok, I reached 200 million people over the last 14 months on TikTok alone with 3 videos of my testimony.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's insane. But like, I think a lot of the times, what we're hearing and where Dwayne really filled the gap in, where I was engaging with a lot of people, but I have 2,000 plus people a month saying, I love Jesus, but I'm struggling with porn. What do I do? I can't individually respond to 2,000 different people. I can't make sure that 2,000 people are connected into churches or being ministered to, or getting curriculum. But what Unite Life does a great job of is plugging people into churches, making sure people are discipled. And we've developed technology where we're working with a group of influencers. So Share the King is a network of Christ-focused Christian influencers, and we are reaching a ton of people. But those people who are being reached, every single person is being that reaches out. If we provide a keyword that essentially prompts them into a conversation, and then they're offered a presentation of the gospel. They're offered an opportunity to plug into a church. They're offered an opportunity to receive curriculum. So what's happening is we're combining these people who are having a big impact regarding reaching people with engagement, but we're making sure those people are seen, known, and they take that practical next step that often doesn't happen, because I think the big disconnect is that middle ground where it's like, I hear the gospel, I feel convicted, whatever it might be. What do I do next? And if that next step doesn't come for 3, 4, 5 days, 2 weeks, the probability of that next step not happening is incredibly high. So we are all collectively working together to make sure every person that wants to take a next step has the opportunity to do so, and there's somewhere to route that person into physical community. And then the digital community is the middle ground, where it's like, hey, if you're not ready to go into a church today, stick with me for a while, stay here, listen to this content that's consistent from the voice that you trust, and then the next step on your journey is to get plugged into physical community.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the video that Josh did with I Am Second is a perfect example of that. And it springboarded us into some new projects with them and other organizations. So as somebody sees this, and they're pushing to reach 100 million people with this message, which is, it's a gospel message, but it's also freedom from pornography addiction. And so literally at the end of the video, there's a call to action. Hey, if you want to know more about who Jesus is, there's a place for them to go. If you want to have freedom from pornography, there's a place. They're going to get training. They're going to be able to join a group for recovery and connect into local fellowship. So always giving those channels, which is now opening the doors for, hey, let's do that in people dealing with anxiety. Let's do that in these other verticals, people who need prayer. So it's opening and it's bringing a lot of people to the table. It's the influencers and all these ministries that are saying, hey, we can provide content here, or hey, we can provide groups and training here. It's amazing to see what God's doing right now.
Yeah, no, it sounds incredible. And I know, Josh, you have this Apostles' Creed video that is dropping on Good Friday. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's such an amazing concept, and really advantageous timing for us organizationally, because my I Am Second video is dropping on the 6th, the day before Good Friday, and then on Good Friday to what you just mentioned, the Apostles' Creed. So we have in the neighborhood of 75 Christian influencers, leaders, pastors. And it's this idea of many to one, where many people are reading through the Apostles' Creed. Sometimes there'll be 4 people on a screen, sometimes there'll be 16 people on a screen, but proclaiming the truth that is found in the Apostles' Creed, who Jesus is, what he accomplished, and at the end, what that means for you. So we're so excited about that. And what's amazing about that is it's not about one person. It's not about one ministry. It's about the truth that's found in Christ. And there was about 75-ish people who contributed to it, but we're asking 10,000 people to share it so that it reaches 100 million people. So 10,000 people all at the same time on Good Friday are pressing send. So we're editing one video. People can sign up. So we'll have the link, I'm sure, down below to sign up. You can sign up for it, and we're going to send you the edited video, and there'll just be 2 simple asks. Use this hashtag that we provide when we send you the video, and what we're going to do is just send you that edited video. So all you got to do is, put it in that place where you post, use the hashtag, and send. And what we're going to do is we're going to track using that hashtag, and we're believing that we're going to reach 100 million people with the truth of Jesus.
On Good Friday, which is
Good Friday.
We're going to break the internet on Good Friday.
That's
for Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Internet,
well, guys, I so appreciate it. You can check down below and get those links, and appreciate you guys coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Billy.
Thanks for having us.